from the shacks. Ooh, I am for real.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I've been doing a lot of anime content recently, but today we're doing something a little bit different. If you noticed by the title, we're doing Magic the Gathering, and I'm doing my Sphinx deck build today. So a few disclaimers before I start the video. I'm just a casual Magic player. I'm not a pro or anything, and the decks I do build are not up to standard. So if you do play standard and you're interested in using anything from this deck, you just have to tweak it a little bit to make it standard. So just disclaimers, heads up. And then also, I don't normally film in this space. I usually film in another room, but due to circumstances, I'm filming in here today. And the chair that I'm sitting in squeaks a lot when I move, so I'm going to try not to move a lot, but I'm super fidgety, so I apologize if you get random chair squeaks. Okay, so most of the decks that I build follow around a certain theme. Usually it's like a type of creature, like I have a dragon deck. And this one is obviously around sphinxes. I decided that I only wanted to incorporate sphinxes, and I got in, from the last draft I did, if you've seen my other video, I got a lot of Sphinx cards from that draft, so I was like, you know what, I should make a Sphinx deck. You know what the heck, why not? So I only have Sphinx creatures and then a lot of instants and some artifacts and enchantments to help them along. The colors of this deck are mostly blue with some white and some black. And the deck is a standard 60 card deck. So starting right off with the creatures, I put 11 Sphinx cards in this deck. Heavily creatures. Going down the line through the creatures, starting off with Wind Reader Sphinx, which is one of the Sphinx I got from the draft last year. This Sphinx is a new Sphinx from the M19 set. It is a 3/7 flyer, which gives it some really awesome defense and some decent attack. And it has a great ability to let you draw cards whenever any flying creature attacks. So that's your own creatures and your opponents. I found that ability to be super helpful. Next, and I apologize if I don't say any of these right either. Not a pro pronunciation. But next is Sphinxo Magosai. It's a powerhouse creature with 6 attack and defense, being a flyer as well. And it lets you draw cards, but also buff it up when you draw the cards, which is like get 2 bagels for the price of 1. That was the only thing I could think of. Next we have Horizon Scholar, a 4/4 flyer with a helpful ability to scry 2 when it comes into play. Sphinx number 4. This one I cannot pronounce. It's Anish, I think. Anish Cross Sphinx Sovereign. It's a must-have Sphinx for any Sphinx deck, period, because it when it's on the field, Sphinx spells you cast cost 2 less. It gets another interesting ability. You also reveal the top 4 cards from your library, and your opponent will put those cards, separate them into 2 piles. Could be 2 and 2, 3 and 1, whatever. And then you get to pick 1 pile and to put in your hand, and the other pile goes into your graveyard. So I thought that was an interesting ability. Next we have Consecrated Sphinx, a 4/6 flyer. Again, good defense, really pretty good attack. And it allows you to draw a card whenever an opponent draws a card. So they get a card, I also get a card. Next up is Ominous Sphinx. I'm gonna butcher that word so many times now. Why did I decide to do this deck? It's a 4/4 flyer with an ability that allows you to give -2/-0 to an opponent's creature until end of turn when you discard a card or cycle a card. Number 7 of the Sphinxes, again, gonna butcher this. Alahamarit, the High Arbiter. 5/5 flyer allows you to choose a non-land card from an opponent's hand. That opponent cannot cast spells with that name as long as this creature is in play. So really awesome for if somebody you're playing against has a lot of the same instant, sorcery, enchantments, creatures. I'm gonna pick that one, and then you won't be able to play any of those. So pretty cool. And then the last monocolored Sphinx is Prosnotic Sphinx, 5/3 flyer, and allows you to scry 3 whenever it attacks. So pretty nice. He can also become hexproof, whenever you discard a card, and then you have to tap him when you use that ability. The last 3 Sphinxes are tricolored Sphinxes, starting off with Magister Sphinx. He's a 5/5 flyer and lets you choose a player, including yourself, to have a life total of 10 when he comes into play. A reason why you might want to use it on yourself is if you're like down to 1 or 2 health and he comes into play. You'll be like, oh, nope, now I have 10, yay. Next is Sphinx of the Steel Wind, another powerhouse. I'd say this one and the Sphinx of Magosai are the 2 powerhouses here. 6 attacks, 6 defense, and has like a multitude of abilities. Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink, and Protection from red and green. So pretty good. And the last Sphinx is Shroom the Hegemon. 5/5 flyer, an artifact creature Sphinx. And it has the ability to return an artifact card from your graveyard when she comes into play. So those are the Sphinxes I chose for this deck. You may have noticed that they're all pretty expensive, so to help with that, I added in some artifacts that really help with the mana cost. So we'll move into that next. Starting with the artifact Soul Ring, which only costs 1 and lets you, it taps for 2 generic. It's pretty awesome, and because it's so broken, decks in standard and other tournaments, you're only allowed to have 1 in the deck. So me and my group that play, we stick to that rule. I only put 1 in this deck. Next is Quicksilver Amulet, but allows you to put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield or taps for 4 mana, and you tap it and you get to put any creature card from your hand on play. So that's pretty awesome. Next I put in 3 Signets, 2 Azorius Signets and 1 Dimir Signet. The Azorius Signet allows you to add a white and a blue to your mana pool with paying 1 generic and tapping it. Dimir Signet allows you to add a black and a blue mana with 1 generic and tapping it. I also added an Azorius Cluestone, which allows you to tap it to add a blue or a white mana, or you can sacrifice it to draw a card. Artifacts have really helped make up for the mana cost of that. Last artifact is Mind's Eye, which just allows you to draw a card whenever an opponent does if you pay 1. It is a little more of an expensive card. It costs 5 mana to play, so honestly if I was going to pull something and switch it, I'd probably change that card up to something else, but just for now I'm going to leave it. Maybe comment below on suggestions of what I can switch it to. So that's it for the artifacts. Next we're moving on to enchantments, which I only have 2 in this deck. The first one is Sphinx Tutelage, which allows you to cause an opponent to discard cards every time you draw a card. And it also lets you draw cards. So it has the ability to let you draw cards, and then you're forcing your opponent to discard cards too. The other one is Rhystic Study, which allows you to draw a card whenever an opponent casts a spell, unless an opponent pays 1 extra mana. So those 2 could actually play hand in hand together. Moving on to the biggest section of this deck, which is the instants. Most of these are counter spells, because the premise of this deck is honestly getting rid of any threats until you can get the powerful Sphinxes creatures out. So it helps you not be defenseless at the beginning of the match when you cannot play that 7 costing Sphinx in your hand and your opponent is putting out a bunch of stuff but it's cheap. Yeah. I know there are better counterspells out there than the ones I have in this deck, but I didn't purchase any cards technically besides the ones I got from the draft, but for this deck, so I just kind of worked with what I had. But again, in the future or in the comments, let me know like different things I could switch out or add in to make the deck better. But first I have 2 counterspells, just generic counterspells, only cost 2 blue mana. 2 cancels, which cost 2 blue, 1 generic, do the same thing, counter. Next is Clash of Wills, which costs 1 blue and X. Which X can be any number of mana, which counters target spell unless that controller pays that X mana to play. I put 2 of those in there. Next I put 2 negates in the deck, which for 1 blue, 1 generic will counter any non-creature spell. And lastly is the counter spell Swan Song, which for 1 blue, you counter a enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell, and its controller gets a 2/2 blue bird token with flying instead. A lot easier to handle than some other things. So I put 2 of those in the deck as well. It's a cheap card, works well. Besides the counter spells, I also have a few other instants, like Recoil, which costs 1 generic, 1 blue, and 1 black mana. You return target permanent to its owner's hand, and then that player discards a card. And then I only had one of those to put into the deck. And then next is Unsummon, which for 1 blue, you get to return target creature card to its owner's hand. I probably honestly would have added 3 of those in for the recoil, but I only had 2 to put in. Next is Brainstorm, which costs only 1 blue, and you get to draw 3 cards and then take 2 cards from your hand and put them on top of your library in any order. And the last instant is a Fuse card that has both Far and Away on it. You can either cast one or both from your hands. For Far, it's return target creature card to its owner's hand, so basically an unsummon. It does cost more though, 1 generic, 1 blue. And then Away forces a target player to sacrifice a creature for 2 generic and 1 black. So that's all the instants in this deck, so that's basically all the spells, and that leaves us with the lands. So for the lands, I use the rule for a 60 card deck, you want somewhere around 24 lands, kind of depending on your costs for everything. In this deck, I'm running 25 lands. I have 3 special types of lands, and then the rest are basic. So the special types, I have 3 Evolving Wilds in this deck, because it allows you to sacrifice and put a basic land card. Just because I'm running multiple colors, you never don't want to have one of the colors that you need. It also kind of helps thin out the deck. And then I put 3 Arcane Sanctums in, which tap for all 3 of the colors in the deck, which is very, very helpful. And then lastly, Vault of the Archangel, which I kind of just put in because I was like, why not? So I put 2 of those in, and it taps for 1 generic, but also you can give your creatures lifelink and death touch by paying 2 generic, 1 white, and 1 black. So that was it for the special lands. And for the basic lands, I have 2 swamps, 4 plains, and 9 islands. And so that's all 60 cards in my Sphinx deck. I've already discovered some combos with the cards, mainly revolving around Shroom the Hegemon. Since she can get an artifact back from the graveyard when she comes into play, you can kind of play her in combination with Omnis Sphinx and Prognostic Sphinx, as both of those creatures allow you to discard cards to activate their ability. So if you have an artifact card in your hand, say the Sphinx of the Steel Wind, which is an artifact creature card, you can discard it with those abilities, and then if you play Shroom the Hegemon, you can bring her back, allowing you to get 2 powerhouse Sphinxes for the price of 1, which is pretty awesome. Well, that about sums up this video. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on it, as well as, again, advice about changing the deck, things you'd like to see in the future as far as Magic the Gathering videos. I'd really like to make more, and I do have some ideas for the future. So subscribe for more content like this, as well as the other things that I do on my channel, and have a great rest of your night.